but that's not the reality. It's the nature of the world that we're living in right now. Sometimes all falls apart. Business is crowded. You can try your best as a leader to make hard decisions. That's how I bring out my feminine leadership.
Welcome back to another episode of Superwoman Isn't Real. And today I'm so excited because I have got Gabriela Hersham on the show to come on, and we're going to do a bit of like a deep dive into business 101, because you're actually very far into your entrepreneurial journey, firstly, which is fantastic. And Gabriela is also a mum of two. So, you know, the mum, founder, businesswoman, juggle, all of that sort of stuff. And I just want to like ask some questions that actually I would love to know as well. So this is kind of like a bit of a selfish one for me as well, to pick the brains of somebody who is well into their journey. So I saw that Huckletree has just opened its 9th site, and you're due to open your 10th next year at the start of 2024. So actually Huckletree is really paving the way in the space of co-working and building community, and those are some of the things that we're hopefully going to dive into. So welcome to the conversation today.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So where do we begin? I mean, I want to start with sort of like diving into Huckletree, but actually what I think would be good is getting to know you well before Huckletree and sort of a little bit about your background. So tell us in your own words, sort of what paved the way into you knowing that you wanted to pursue not only entrepreneurship, but I would say quite a competitive and I'm sure challenging in many ways sector.
Okay, very good question. So I think the truth is that I didn't know how competitive my sector would be when I kicked off.
Always the story.
Yeah, and probably that's a good thing, because I had that naivety that kind of let me just go for it and do it. And if I would have known then all the things that I know now about how competitive it is and real estate and all the challenges that come with real estate, plus that we would be going through a pandemic, plus, I would never have done it. So I'm really glad that actually I went in quite gung-ho and naive to the realities that I would end up encountering.
Yes.
And actually I think that's a really important lesson for any kind of first-time founders. Obviously you want to do your research, you want to do your due diligence, you want to research your industry completely, but an element of intuition I think is really important, because otherwise you'll never kick something off. So that's just to tell you, you know, when I started I really had no idea what I was getting into. I think from the way that my life unfolded, that has pushed me towards a career in entrepreneurship. It's been something I've been giving a lot of thought to recently, because I've been thinking what have been the key moments in my life that have made me the person that I am. And I remember one of those moments being I went to university in London, and it was in central London. So we were always out and about in central London. And my father, actually, who works in real estate himself, has an office just around the corner from here. And I remember driving home, or, you know, being in a mini cab home from nightclubs in central London at, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And I would see my father's light on in his office, and I would see him hunched over his desk and
Wow.
working. And he was probably at the time, probably around 50. I mean, he wasn't very old.
Yeah.
But that visual of my dad working so hard and working into all hours of the night, and he's always been like that, and so is my mum, has really kind of given me that feeling of I need to build something, I need to contribute. Whatever I do, I need to earn my keep in this world as well.
Yes.
So I think that has very much given me that feeling of that.
Of drive.
Yeah.
And isn't it amazing? Because I think these little things that we have no idea are influencing us at all. You know, it's like little conversations you hear as a child. It's seeing your dad working at the dinner table after you, if you creep down from your bed and you see this, whatever it is, actually embed into our minds and play a massive role later on. And I guess that's exactly what you're alluding to, is like you would see that probably had no significance at 3 or 4 in the morning, but like now it's probably created you into the person that you were.
100%. Exactly. It's given me that, not a guilt, but almost like a sense of obligation.
Yes.
Duty.
And I don't know about you, but being mums now, I think about that a lot.
Yes.
I think about how informative these years are. So remind me, your children are?
So I've got 2 boys. They are 4 and nearly 8.
Wow. And so they're in those formative years where everything you're doing is, they're watching, they're observing, and something's going in and some things aren't, but they're forming a picture, right?
They definitely are. So it's funny, it's really interesting, because my eldest is doing exams now for school, and as part of the interview prep, one of the questions was, what what does your mother and father do? And so I've been walking him through, and he knows this. He's known this for years. My mummy is an entrepreneur. He's very cute. He says I sell buildings. I don't, but I didn't have the heart to correct it.
Lovely,
I sell
take it.
office space within buildings, but okay. And daddy is an investor.
Great.
And I was like, and what does an investor mean? And this is a 7-year-old boy, and I totally didn't think that he would know the answer. And he looked at me in my eyes and he said, being an investor is when you give a company money and in return you get to own a piece of that company, word for word.
Perfect.
And I was like,
you've done your job.
done my job.
Retire, you're done. But isn't it like, I don't even think some 30-year-olds could answer that question probably as eloquently and as well.
Yeah.
And that is obviously not necessarily their fault. It's a failing of our probably schooling system and what we're taught at certain ages, but that is actually spot on.
But it's to the point of osmosis, you know, when you're at home and you see your parents working hard, and I think it's so important for young children especially to see mothers working as hard as fathers, and mothers also, you know, struggling, not necessarily struggling, but yeah, there's an element of struggling to make ends meet and hustling and getting your work done and really trying to make it all, you know, to do as well as you can. And I think that, you know, back to my story with my dad, that trickles down.
It does.
And that gives you that sense of whatever I do, I need to work hard because that's what we do. And I like that, you know, I think it's important.
I love it. I will never stop going on about hard work. And we talk about it in a few earlier podcasts too, is that there is actually no substitute for hard work. And I think, I don't know if you have picked up on this, like maybe being a mum, maybe I'm a bit more hyper aware, but there is definitely a culture, and I don't know if it's bred by social media, of actually anti-hard work. Like, it's almost this sense of like, we see influencers now jetting around, not doing very much. And like, well, what we see is that sort of perception of not doing a lot, but having this insane lifestyle. And I always say to my kids, it's hard work. The only number one thing that can take you back to where you want to be is going to be hard work in any discipline, in any field. And I don't know if you see that and have an opinion on it too, because it kind of like is baffling to me. And maybe because I interview a lot of people, and sometimes the conversations I have in the interviews, I'm like, it's not possible, you know, that every single thing that they want in that interview, I'm like, well, no, there has to be an element of coming into the office and just working really, really hard. And some days are going to be long and you might work past 5 p.m. Might be a little bit uncomfortable, but do you encounter anything like that?
No, I think it's also very generational. And I think that like generations go through different shifts and have different perspectives and kind of idealisms on what their career should look like. I think that our generation is not afraid of hard work. Our generation, you know, we've been through the wars and back. We've been through the recession in 2007. I don't know how old you were, but I was just starting my career at that point. And the trajectory since then, you know, it's never been gravy for us. It's always been a battle. And here in this country, we've had Brexit, we've had COVID, we've had everything. Right? So we've had to fight for it.
Yes.
And I get a little bit frustrated now when I see younger people who think that in this market where it's really challenging to, you know, I was reading an article yesterday, if you've got a good job and you're paid a decent salary and you're respected, smile. Like, be happy and take it, because so many people don't have that today.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, businesses are making cuts. You know, we've been forced all year to structure and restructure and reorg and re-strategize. And it's the nature of the world that we're living in right now. Like, the environment is really, really tough. And then you see people that don't quite understand that and think that it's easy to kind of take this or leave it, another one will be coming along. And I just don't see the world that way.
No, nor do I.
I'm quite demanding. You know, if you work for Huckletree, I think that you need to be working hard.
This is what I want to, this is the sort of brain I want to pick with you, because I think you do have a big team now. And I think we spoke about it. You're about around 50 people.
No, we're 50 people, but for me, that's not big because we've been so much bigger. 50 people for me feels we're very stretched. We're very tight on resource, and we all need to be working like as hard as we can.
And so creating, I guess, that culture is so important for an organization like yours that is scaling and that actually is brick and mortar and does actually need people like on the ground, right? Yeah. So interviewing, I'm sure, is a massive skill for you, and having to like find the qualities that you look for in a person. But we get a lot of younger people listening, and I think this advice is like invaluable, because people are going to interviews right today and they're thinking, why did I not get it? And I think from someone like you, where you probably have exposure to lots of CVs and seeing lots of different people come through. What would you say are the most important things someone wants to get across in an interview? Not just for your business, but generally when they are going out? Because like I said, the market is tough and we want to give people wisdom.
I think it depends on the industry and the role. But I think, you kind of alluded to it there earlier. When you're working in hospitality, when you're working in a physical space, it's really important how personable you are and how engaging you are. And I think that's not to be underestimated in an interview. So I think that is really important. I'm also thinking back to the interview that my son had for school, and we were preparing all the questions, as I was saying. And the final question was, do you have any questions for me? And Jack, my son, just thought, no, I have no questions. Like, I'm not going to ask anything. Let me get out of there as quickly as I can.
Yes.
I said to him, you have to ask questions. So go on the website, research the website. He's 7 years old. Okay? Have a look at the website and come up with 3 questions.
That's great advice.
And what it meant was that A, he was prepared. He knew all about the school. And B, he was genuinely engaged and genuinely had questions that he wanted to answer. And he came up with 3 brilliant questions. The first one was like, I love your science facilities. I'm really interested in science. I recently learned about that, I don't know, scientists can bring back the dodo with DNA from their relative animals or something. And he was like, would I be able to see them as part of the interview process? I thought that was a great question.
It's a great
question because it shows I'm interested. Do you know what I mean? I'm curious. I'm engaged. Like, those are the people.
And it leaves a lasting impression.
100%.
I don't know about you, but I never forget when someone asks questions. When someone leaves an interview, almost interviewing me back, I kind of want them more because I'm like, actually, like I want to actually answer those questions for you, and I want to make sure I answer them really well and really clearly.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually perfect advice. Don't be afraid to use your voice and ask questions, because people often think they're putting people, like I don't want to say anything. I just want to stay quiet and meet and do my job. And actually, I think you're probably looking for someone that will have intrigue and curiosity and come to the table with some sort of thought.
100%. And I also think, just to wrap that up, that it's really important that you can come to an interview with like tangible examples of when you've done things. So that thing could be had a project that you've had to roll out and embed across a team, or it could be an example of when you've resolved conflict between other team members. And obviously depending on, how senior the role is and whatnot. But I think having concrete examples of things that you've been through as part of your previous career experience, assuming that, you're not fresh out of school, I think that's also really important.
Yeah, I love that. I want to take it back a little bit to the starting of Huckletree, because we sort of spoke a little bit about your drive, seeing your dad working hard, coming out of uni. From that, how do you then go to saying, because what I love about this, and I keep coming back to it, but you had to actually go find a physical site. So you had to make this real for yourself quite quickly, right? This isn't like I'm going to sit and, nothing bad about those types of businesses, but anyone can create a square space and say, I'm going to have a go at creating
I wish I did that.
Yes, I'm sure you did. I'm sure, no, it's an amazing business, but you had to actually go and find a lease and sign some paperwork and actually put down probably quite a sizable commitment to get going, right? Talk to me about those first few years and how that process was. And I'm guessing that was your first endeavor in this sort of space.
Yes, it totally was. I had been working in the film industry in New York. So I had been actually studying film and acting, and then realized I was very bad, and then pivoting into film production. But I'd never done anything really entrepreneurial of my own. So the first few years were, on the one hand, I was very motivated because I just thought I've got this bee in my bonnet about this concept. It doesn't exist. It did exist in the UK, but it wasn't everywhere. And I really had a feeling that entrepreneurship, it was just after the recession as well. So entrepreneurship was exploding and everybody was kind of starting their own businesses, and people didn't want to take long leases anymore. So I felt like this co-working, flexible workspace concept had to just grow and be everywhere, and that I wanted to create it specifically for that group of innovation businesses. So I had this bee in my bonnet about it, which propelled me. But it was very hard to raise money. And I think I can't really remember if it was because of the economy, because I just don't remember. I just kind of went for it, or if it was because of me. I was very young. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was a first-time founder. This was also 12 years ago, where as a female founder alone, I was in fundraising meetings where the investors weren't addressing me. They were addressing my friend Alex, who was helping me raise money, but it wasn't his idea, it wasn't his business. And they would look at him throughout the whole meeting and I should have been answering the questions.
Of course.
And the thing is that I allowed that to happen. Like today, I would never allow that to happen.
But that's your growth and your journey.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I mean, 12 years ago, gosh, I don't even know, because today we're still at about 3% of female founders raising money. So 12 years ago, God, what was the stat? Probably 0.25%. I don't even know where we were at. But I mean, no wonder it was hard and it's sort of unspoken. But now we are talking about it, which is so exciting for new female founders entering the space. So how did you eventually raise?
Yeah.
And because that's a huge feat and something to be very proud of. And how have you continued to raise? Because I'm sure you've had to propel the growth of the company and keep signing. I mean, you're at 9 sites now, so that's an amazing growth story.
I would say that the journey has gotten easier, even though the numbers have gotten bigger, and the total investment amounts each time have gone from small to medium to whoa. But actually the journey has gotten easier because as the business becomes more and more established and you've got the track record to prove it, and you've got the team and you've got the buildings and you've got your brand awareness, and the market has shifted, it has become easier. And I've been very lucky because I've had investors who have joined quite early on who have been super supportive, in terms of being on the board, making introductions, really helping me strategize, and B, in terms of helping us financially with facilities to grow, which has meant that I haven't had to keep going out to market to fundraise with every new building I open, which wouldn't make sense.
No.
So I feel very fortunate.
It'd be like starting every single time again. That's what I've had.
It would be impossible.
It'd be impossible.
Really diluted. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But I'm very lucky to have
great relationships with your investors.
Yes.
That's amazing. You went after quite a big idea, and we've had a lot of people come on and we talk a lot about work-life balance. But I want to be really realistic on this podcast. I mean, this podcast is the good, the bad, the ugly. We're not trying to create a polished picture at all, because it's not. And I think, especially when you're young and naive and in your 20s, it can look quite polished and perfect. And now, with a bit of age on us and wisdom, we know that it's anything but. And I like that. I like the messiness of entrepreneurship. I'm leaning into it more myself and going, it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a bit gritty and grotty and horrible. But you've obviously, and another thing, that you allude to is that you've been in this for 12 years. We also don't hear about the long game. Like, everyone talks about the short game. Everyone talks about the 2-year raise, the 5-year sale. And I think that's really dangerous too, because that's a very small percentage of us that manage to do that. So 2 questions there for you. Let's go to the long game first. I love that you've been in this for 12 years because I feel like you've followed it through. You didn't get bored. You didn't just do shiny object syndrome. Like, you're really seeing it through.
I also like shiny objects.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about the long game and what that sort of has taught you, and what is the future for you? Like, how, what is the vision? Because the vision seems quite big.
No, I mean, look, it has been really, really long. I think what I have learned throughout the process is that I have a lot more grit and determination and resilience than maybe I thought I did. I didn't really examine it, but I've realized that I actually have a lot of it. And you see it, like throughout the course of Huckletree, people have come, people have gone, buildings have come, buildings have gone. And, I'm the one thing that's constant. And I guess that is the way it's supposed to be because I'm the founder.
Yes.
But it's been a long journey.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey. I would have probably liked it to have been shorter. Would definitely have liked it to be shorter. So with my investors. But we have been faced with very unprecedented challenges, and it hasn't been possible. I think, and we're still in one, by the way. I don't know how you're feeling, but for me, kind of, economically speaking, I feel like the world is in a very uncertain place at the moment.
It is.
And that's definitely impacting our plans. But again, it kind of speaks to the resilience. And even when plans kind of keep getting pushed out, and you battle with everything when plans get pushed out, because you have frustrated team members, frustrated investors. There's just so much that you have to contend with over and above the actual delay of the plan itself. Yeah. But I've done it this far.
Yes, through some very challenging.
And 100%. And I'm not
pregnancies. And we don't often talk about it. It's glossed over with women. Like, we've done it this far, but you've actually in that 12 years also had 2 children, which in itself is pretty defining stop, pause moments, right? Let's talk about that, because how on earth did you navigate growing, still maintaining, and having kids?
It's so funny because it's also been a kind of evolution that the first one was hard, the second one was a bit easier. And actually, I feel like if I ever had a third kid, that it would just be
I wasn't sure if you were talking about the locations then. The first one was hard. Second, we're talking about kids. Also
exactly,
that, yeah.
Also. But with the kids, you know, if I had a third one now, so for example, with the first child, I was about to close kind of our first bigger sized fundraising round. And I didn't know when to tell the investors I was pregnant. Do I tell them once it's signed?
Yes.
Once the money's in the bank, then they'll think I'm a complete liar. Should I tell them now? But then they won't invest. But this was 8 years ago, right?
Wow.
Today, it's a very different one. And by the way, and I did end up telling my investor, and I was super nervous. And I remember exactly where I was. I was driving in my car. I was in Regent's Park, and I know exactly where I was turning when I told him because I was that nervous about it. And he was like, great, congrats. He was super cool. But the world has also changed. I wouldn't be nervous about it today. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
today, I would be
absolutely.
like, I'm pregnant. Cool.
You'd own it. This is a part of my life.
It's not even, it's a non-issue today, I think. Or maybe I'm privileged to see it that way. And then also, you know, the first one, I took 10 weeks off work. I rushed back to work after 10 weeks, which I just think that was the wrong choice because that is a precious moment. Like,
Yes.
why did I do that? But we were opening one of our spaces and I had to get back. The second one, I took 4 months. I had a great team around me. I felt more comfortable. They came over I can't remember what day. I think it was every Monday. They came over for breakfast, my whole leadership team. And we were together throughout my mat leave. And then I went back to work. And a month later, it was the pandemic and it was lockdown. So that was weird as well. But now I think, you know, I would just feel so comfortable telling everyone I'm pregnant, but no issue.
Yeah.
And
taking hopefully a little bit longer for yourself.
Taking longer, but working remotely. And I think that's what the world has done today is that I could do that. You know, that was not an option.
No.
8 years ago.
That's the biggest positive, I think, for everyone, not just founders, everyone, is that shift.
Yeah.
The work from home option, the fact that you can be productive from anywhere, you can be productive in another country and still contribute has been huge.
I mean, I'm also always balancing it. Obviously, I'm in the workspace industry. So for me, it's not, I don't believe that, you know, working remotely is a fully viable option for all the time.
I agree.
I just don't. I also think it really impacts our mental health.
Yeah.
Plus business output, of course. But I do think that, you know, it's opened us up to having just greater flexibility, and that's a good thing.
For mums, I mean, I have struggled so much with how to do it, and there's no rule book for mums, is there? So like, there's this insane guilt. I was the same as you. I rushed back, I think 6 weeks. I was like doing another pitch to a company. Yeah. And I thought I was okay, but I look back now and I was not okay. I remember walking out and I put heeled boots on and I could barely walk because I was like, you know, I hadn't worn heeled boots in like 6 months. And I was like, this feels alien to me. Like, what am I even doing? And I actually loved the day and we won the pitch and everything went great. But I remember not really actually being ready to do anything like that. But I sort of pushed and pushed and pushed. And you learn a lot about yourself, I think, in those key moments like having children where you can actually go back and reflect and figure it out. How is the balance today? Because they're a little bit older, but I don't know if I've got mum friends that say, it's not easier. No. They're older, but it's different challenges.
It's kind of harder in a way because, you know, you have to, like, for example, Jack has football, tennis, guitar, this, and I'm running around and trying to make it all work and trying to pay for it all. And it's not easy.
How are you making it work? Tell me, because I need the secrets because, oh my goodness, that is hard. That's hard.
My only piece of advice, the only thing that works for me is being so overly organized that it compensates for the chaos that's in my mind the whole time. Yeah. So I've got on the fridge at home, I've got like their full schedule with everywhere everyone has to be. I make a meal plan for them for every single day.
Wow.
Everything is like in Excel spreadsheets. I know exactly what's happening. I know where they are. And also with me and my husband, we share a calendar. So I know that, you know, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, he takes them to school, and Mondays, Thursdays and Fridays, I do it. And actually, I love that moment. I love the drop-off moment. I don't ever want to lose it. And that's our moment together. We never do pickups. So just having like bulletproof schedules that work. Actually, it's really funny because last week we were both traveling and we realized the night before that he was going to Berlin and I was going to Dublin, and we were both taking 6 a.m. flights.
Oh, wow.
So we were like,
bad parenting. Who's taking the kids?
You know, we're here at like 4 a.m. tomorrow morning with the kids. So what do we do? So sometimes, you know, it kind of all falls apart. But for me, I just have to be overly scheduled. Otherwise, it's chaotic. And I don't do well with chaos. I don't do well with stress.
Yes.
I do well with pressure, but I don't do well with like that feeling of I've got so much to do and I've got to get it all done by 11 a.m. and I don't even know where to begin. That doesn't.
I love that you've just said that. I do well with pressure, but I don't do great with stress, because stress is actually the secret killer, isn't it? Stress is the silent killer. Stress is the thing that makes us sick. Stress is the thing that makes us lose sleep. And we can't function if we are not, if we're in that high. What are your, I mean, you've sort of alluded to one there, but I love these again because they're practical, they're real, they're actionable. And we're kind of, again, telling the truth. You want to do all of this, you've got to be highly organized. You've got to be almost militant, because there is no shortcut to this. Let's be honest. Like, I've tried to be a chill mum. Doesn't work. I'm not productive. My kids aren't where they need to be. So being highly organized is obviously one way that you're really able to navigate all of this. Anything else that is like a non-negotiable for you, that is for yourself every week or every day, that helps you understand where you need to be and where your kids need to be and how on earth you're doing all of this, because there's a lot on your plate.
No, I think also I just try to find moments for myself. I think that's really important. You know, I'm probably like you, I imagine, like work out a lot. I love it. I need it. When I don't do it because I haven't made the time, I feel emotionally not as good as I would with it. So even this morning, I felt a pang of guilt. I was dropping the kids at school and I saw someone going for a run, and it reminded me that I haven't worked out in a few days. And I was like, why haven't I prioritized it? So even if it's like 20 minutes on a yoga mat and I do my abs routine or my leg lifts or whatever it might be, it needs to be
this huge, big, sweaty workout. Yeah.
It doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to cost anything. I don't need to leave my house. Like, none of us need to.
Yeah.
Just, you know, you can teach yourself what to do.
Yeah.
But if I don't do that, I kind of feel like I'm not grounding myself enough. So
I love that. Yeah. And sleep, do you have any rules around your sleep pattern?
I need them. I need some rules.
Because I'm fascinated with sleep. I mean, I find it a topic that I can like really obsess over, because for me, exercise, obviously, absolutely non-negotiable. And I'm the same as you. I feel like as I'm getting older, it's impacting me more, not less. Especially maybe being a mum, I don't know what it is. It lifts me so much more than it should. Like, come out of that, it's like I've come out of a nightclub, you know, just feeling so good. But sleep, what are your rules around sleep? Or is this a sort of...
I don't have any.
You don't have any?
I need some. So I am like... I'm really bad. So my two boys basically end up...
I'm shocked because you look very well rested. So I'm like, yes.
Thank you so much for saying that.
The coffee was the giveaway, right?
And it's number 2 of the day. No, so both boys were in my bed last night.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I don't even know why. The eldest one never comes in, but he was there. The little one frequently comes in. The phones are there.
The phones are there.
There should be more phones in the other room. I'd like a clock, so I have an alarm clock. You know, no kids in the bedroom, and really try to get 8 hours sleep, but I'm just not. I could do it, but I need to make a plan.
Yeah, so you kind of get what you can and you're able to function, but you have other non-negotiables clearly that are... So one of the things, I mean, and you talked about investing, sort of it being a bit of a man's world, coming in as a female founder, you obviously have managed to navigate that quite well. And we've had people that are very early on in their journey navigating that at the start, but you're some way in. A brick and mortar business, signing leases. And we were talking about this before the episode even started, because my husband is in a similar industry of looking at sites, getting very attached to sites, and then going through all of the emotional turmoil. Did you feel anything like that when you went through that process? Because I'm sure, again, that is a bit of a man's world. I'm not really too sure, but what it is. Okay, great. I'm glad you're confirming. Yes.
Big time. It really is a man's world, but I think that we have to find ways to use things to our advantage.
Yes.
So I remember after the pandemic, my co-founder had moved back to Dublin. So all of a sudden, and he had previously been on the kind of real estate and the growth side of the business. And all of a sudden I was here, and it was really an opportunity for me to step into that.
Right.
And, you know, we'd all been in pandemic, businesses had really been suffering. And I got this database of all of the developments that were happening in London. And I found their email addresses. And I reached out to everyone, and I kind of, you know, however I could, if it was like, I could see that someone was connected on LinkedIn, so I asked them to introduce me, or I would badger this person, whenever I could, to meet these people. And literally in the emails, they didn't write me the first time, and they were all men.
Yes.
I would write back saying, you can't let one of the few women in real estate in London, you can't not reply to my email. Like, you've got to help me.
Wow.
Look, it's the truth.
I love that.
It's the truth. I'm sorry. Like, they all speak about diversity.
Yeah. So here it is in front of you.
But help me out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean give me your building. No, of course, you're going to go through whatever process you need to go through, but at least open the door for me. Like, it makes me angry.
Yes.
Then if they don't do that, they have no right to get up on panels and say, my company
We're
is
open
looking
to
at
this.
diversity. Because
Absolutely.
you're not. So I think also it's like, how can we, we are underrepresented in our industries, but how can we also, use that to help us advance our businesses in the right way?
And you've just given a great example, because people talk resilience, people talk grit. People don't really know what that is always. They sort of think, well, I'm resilient. That's a great example of grit, because it's not giving up on the first no. And I guess it's nice to get real examples of it, because it almost does. These are words that are thrown around, right? Like, what is resilience? What is grit? But similarly, I will email someone 6 or 7 times until I at least get a no, because then I'm like, okay, well, now I know.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you haven't heard back, then that's fair game. Go email them again. And I love that from somebody that, you have gone and grown the business, and you've done it through probably employing methods like that.
Look, I learned also from my dad that when you run a business and when you need to win new business, A, if you don't ask, you don't get. But B, if you don't ask and persist, you don't get. There's no concept of course, you can do it in a nice way. You can be polite, you can whatever. But you've got to be a bit pushy.
Yes.
Like, business is crowded.
Yes.
Industries are crowded. You've got to push. So that's kind of where I am.
Love it.
A gentle pusher.
A gentle, that's great. I love it. Well, I think we all need to employ a little bit more of that, because we can get so downtrodden by like one no, and it's always like, go seek 50 no's and then you'll find your 5 yeses, and those 5 yeses will propel you forward. So just do it as part of the game of business, rather than getting emotionally attached to every single response that you get. And that for me has been a massive shift. But I think at the start, for anybody, we almost think they're all going to flood in. All the yeses will flood in and this will be so easy, and it's anything but. And so this is sort of like the insight of the actual game that we're playing. Our last episode prior to this, and I really wanted to pick your brains on this, was actually we touched a tiny bit on feminine leadership. And again, I feel like this is one of these buzz phrases that have been like thrown about in the last 3-4 years. On a practical level, because I think it's easy as a concept to talk about almost in like a textbook sense of what feminine leadership is, but it actually employing that and like running a business with it and remembering to be in that, I think is a very different concept. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh my God, I don't know.
And maybe summarize it for people that are like, what are they talking about? 'Cause
Like,
I think,
what is feminine leadership?
yeah, well, what is it to you? And have you felt any sort of like pressure to try and lean into that? Or have you done so naturally, maybe?
I think, okay, so for context, and I was mentioning this earlier, so obviously my co-founder exited the business about 1.5 years ago.
Yes.
So when he was in the business, we had the man and we had the woman, and I was able to be much more feminine.
Yes.
And I think also that was also at a time post-pandemic when industries were bouncing back, and we went from kind of 60 to 95% occupancy across our portfolio very quickly. The times were quite good for us.
Yeah.
It's like that one window of like, boom, basically. And then Andrew left the business. So all of a sudden I'm like alone as a founder, and, that boom has not continued. That was just a kind of blip bounce back period. And now we're back in quite a challenging environment. So I'm saying this because I think this concept of feminine leadership, and I don't know what it means to you, there's good elements of it, and there's elements of it that like you can employ when everything is easy, but when push comes to shove and I just need to make sure that the business stays afloat, it's harder.
Yes. Well, that's exactly what I'm alluding to. It's not so easy to always be in that very soft, fluffy, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not always easy to be in that. I'm a solo founder too, and so there is no yin and yang sort of like, I have to embody it all, and it's a challenge. It's actually quite hard. It's hard on the days when I'm quite fiery and feisty. I need to make quick decisions, and I'm not in that space and that energy. And I sometimes think that's okay, because I sometimes like myself when I'm a bit more driven. And I, like you said, it's a challenging time, and you've probably got to make decisions very fast.
Yes, 100%. And those decisions are not always, as you say, the kind of fluffy, easy decisions to make at all. But I think that you can try your best as a leader to make hard decisions in the right way. You won't always get it right. I don't always get it right, but I do try.
Yep.
And that's the thing. And I think maybe that's how I bring out my feminine leadership versus if I had less of that, it would just be very cutthroat.
Yes.
And look, certain environments do call for that also. And I feel like today I'm kind of more on those lines because I do find, and I've said this a few times, but the economy is very challenging right now. And, there isn't a lot of time to kill with these decisions. So unfortunately today, decisions are being made that I would love to have a little bit less pressure to make, but that's not the reality.
Yep.
So...
And I think like you just have done on this podcast, we're reminding people of the context here, right? Like just actually saying it is a challenging time. Yeah. People don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. And actually I think great leadership is just communicating that.
Yeah.
I'm not being like this just to be like this. I'm being like this because there's a lot going on in the background.
100%.
And people forget that that's all on your shoulders, right? Yeah. As a mum. And this is another thing that I think I've struggled with, I've got better with, and I get bad at again, is separating professional and personal. And I feel like if something happens professionally that's really bad, I used to go home and take all of that with me. And then of course you have little kids looking at you, examining you, picking up on things, and often very naively saying, Mummy, why are you shouting? And they'll actually call you out on it. It's like having a mirror, isn't it? We're like, oh my God, there's nowhere to hide. Like when I didn't have kids, this wasn't an issue. I could just stomp around my flat. Can't do that anymore. How do you deal with that as a mum, or what are your sort of boundaries?
I think it's unrealistic to think that you can have, something quite like significantly negative happen at work and just leave that at the door when you get home. I can't do that.
Okay.
But what I can do is choose not to be aggressive towards my children or my husband, which I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah.
But it's there, it's in my mind, and I'm probably spending too much time on my phone that evening trying to firefight, but it's still there. I don't, it's very hard, I think, when you run your own business, there is no concept of separation, and often I give myself slack too, by the way. Like if I can't work one morning because I want to go to my son's Christmas play, and I have a pang of guilt thinking, hold on, I'm not at work, but there are 50 people who are, I'm also like, but I'm the only one, there's probably a couple of others, who... Huckletree is on my mind 24/7.
Yeah.
So when you're going out for dinner or, having your downtime, that's a luxury that I don't have because it's always there.
Yes.
And if I'm going for dinner, I'm always thinking about, is there a way that this relationship could be beneficial to Huckletree?
Always.
Which is horrible.
No, always. Yeah. One of the best bits of advice I got, because I used to have the same pang of guilt, and this is the first Christmas actually that I have tried to attend. I mean, by the way, firstly, navigating Christmas as a mum and a founder, any mum doing this, medal to you, because I feel like it's absolutely bonkers. The Christmas hamper, the Christmas raffle, the Christmas party, the Christmas fair. Oh, you don't?
No, I don't celebrate Christmas.
Fine. All the kids stuff though, the school stuff. It's just...
a lot.
It's a lot. It's the newsletters, it's the emails, it's the messages, it's everything.
The Christmas and jumper, the play, the odd socks, the this, the
gifts for the teachers, the this, and you feel...
I forgot the gifts for the teacher.
So did I last year. I forgot it last year.
This morning.
Oh, okay.
And I miraculously went home, grabbed 4 bottles of wine.
Well
and
done.
To the school.
Perfect. And it's wine, so it's brilliant.
Yeah.
No, I did it last year, and honestly, it was one of those things that it's absolutely ridiculous because we do so many other things which benefit the economy and are great but these little things like I forgot to contribute to the teacher's gift. Last year ate me alive. I'm not doing it, and I was still talking about it.
On the card?
No, I was in a WhatsApp group chat, and they sort of were like, "We're still awaiting some contributions from 2 parents," and I was like, "I'm one of them."
Wait, I have to tell you. So there was a whole article last week. I'll dig it out and send it to you on like the evolution of the parents group WhatsApp chats.
Wow,
they are intense.
They are intense, and my husband acts like he doesn't know it exists. Will not let me add him. Yeah. So I'm in there firefighting for, and there's one for one child, there's one for another child, and it's a mix of parents. Like some parents aren't working and can dedicate so much time to it, and other parents are, and it's this constant push-pull, isn't it, of being like, well, I don't want to miss the fair, but then actually I've really got an important meeting that will drive forward my company quite a bit.
So prioritization, right? Yes. I didn't miss the fair. I went to the fair. I actually worked the cafe stand.
Well done. Oh my God, you had a stand.
We had a cafe stand and everybody was drinking champagne and they were serving them at £10 a glass.
Amazing.
Which I actually felt very uncomfortable with. It's like, I'm sorry, it's so expensive.
I love it. This is entrepreneurship for the school. I love it.
But that was good. I did that. I obviously did the Christmas play because that's important. I didn't do the Christmas carols. because my eldest didn't have solar. So I was like, it's okay. I couldn't make it.
Yeah.
You just have to, you cannot run your own business and be at everything.
Absolutely.
You just can't. It's a lifestyle business. It doesn't
work. And I also remember times when my parents couldn't attend things. I mean, my parents were immigrants to this country. They had to work incredibly hard. My parents were not at everything. And the resilience we talk about, I then reflect back and go, did it come from that actually? Looking up and going, no one's here at my play today. And that's okay. I survived it. And you get to the end. And I think we're in, maybe this is a social media parenting era again, where we get swept into, but I'm going to be there, and I'm not just going to be there. I'm going to be the one with the cookies to hand out at the end, and the this and the that. And sometimes you have to do a reality check on yourself to go,
do I need to do that?
Do I need to do that?
I have a rule. I don't bake.
Okay, I love it.
There's no baking going on in my house.
I love it. Yeah. It's too messy. It's such a messy activity.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
It's too specific, and I don't have the time.
Great.
So, and also really great piece of advice. You don't have to cook the meal to be at the table. So that's just about the baking. I don't need to be the one baking the cupcakes.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my kids will still know that I love them. So.
And that is an act of being kind to yourself, isn't it? It's just letting yourself off the hook for something to go, not my skill. It's not my thing. But what I am good at is X, Y, and Z. And I'll execute those. Like your meal planner on your fridge, which is
so good. Which they hated every recipe.
Oh gosh, it's okay. They don't eat it anyway, do they? When you make it.
Exactly.
Somebody who's listening to this, maybe they're looking to jump. I always ask this question for somebody that's like well into an entrepreneurship journey, but maybe they're looking to jump. Maybe they're a new mum and they're looking for a new adventure. What would be your advice to them today? Because I love what you said at the beginning about naivety, firstly. And I think there's so much noise out there of like, it's not a bad thing to do. I wish I made a business plan, but I didn't. I'm going to be completely honest. I did not make a business plan. I did not spend tons and tons and tons of time. I jumped into a sector I was passionate about. I would love your take on things that they should just bear in mind.
But I think that's it. It's the passion. That is it. Because, we've spoken about the length of time, the ups and downs, the resilience that we need, the fact that running a business is not for everyone. And actually, I really felt that this week and last week.
Yeah.
Where I was like, this is why they say that running a business isn't for everyone, because it's all on your shoulders, right? We've spoken about all of this. And the one thing that gets you through this is passion. I love what I do. I love Huckletree. I love designing funky spaces that nobody has conceived of before. I love bringing people together. I love meeting new people, meeting exciting new people who are running businesses and putting them in the same room. I love bringing a creative element to a business. I love the challenges. I love all of it. And I love real estate. I'm passionate about architecture, development, how cities advance themselves, all of it, right? If I didn't have any of this, I would have been out of the game a long time ago. So whatever it is you do, you have to be passionate about it, and you have to know, that has to be something that it's not going to be 1 year. It's not going to be 2 years. Maybe it could be 5 years, whatever. But can that business idea sustain you?
And have you got better at this? Because I'm sure you've had to get very good at it. Just leaning into the things you really want to do for Huckletree as opposed to the things you feel you have to do? Or is it still a balance? Because I think, again, when you first start out in an entrepreneurship journey, you just try to do everything. Things you're like horrible at, right? Like you don't want to pay for the accountant, so you try to balance it, but you've never done maths in your life. Yeah, actually, I was too.
My spreadsheets.
Yes, because I studied economics, so I was lucky that I was good at that. But could easily have not been good at that and probably would have still attempted it and done a horrible job. Have you got good at that? Because I think that is a huge skill. It's like lean into the stuff you're really good at.
I just see it now that I need to do what the business needs me to do at any given moment in time. So after COVID, the business needed me to be really outward facing, meeting all of the developers, getting opportunities for growth for us. And that's great. And now we've got an amazing pipeline. And I also have, a great person on my real estate team who's kind of pushing it forward and advancing it forward. So that I'm not needed on the forefront of that anymore, but I come into those meetings at the right time.
Yes.
There was a period where sales were really struggling and I had to step into sales. There was a period where internally I was really internally in kind of like internal comms and whatnot. There was a period where I was it just depends on where the business needs me, and wherever that is, I will be there.
So remaining super versatile, super nimble, being able to jump into those and plug those holes, identify what's going on.
100%. There's no constant. every kind of quarter is quite different in that sense. It's like, where do I need to be right now? So yeah, I mean, and I enjoy all of it. That's the truth. If it's like internal or external, if it's like real estate, deal structuring, or like team comms or interior design, or I like all of it in its own way. So you kind of don't have the luxury of choosing, I think.
I love that. And you're right. It always comes back to passion. Always. It's like you can pick any industry you want. It can be super competitive, but it comes back to passion. I could talk and talk and talk because you're giving us so much insight into what it actually takes. And I love that you are gritty, and I love that you are straight talking. I really appreciate that, because we don't want people to think this is a walk in the park, because there are challenges, like you said. We always end the podcast with, obviously this concept is that we aren't superwomen. We're often touted as superwomen. I'm sure you hear that a lot of time. Hate it, because it sets up a completely unrealistic ideal.
It's also very cheesy, and it's like, no, I'm not.
You're not. You're surviving. Surviving with phones next to the bed, kids in the bed, and you're just getting through it, right? And that's the reality of it. But I do believe we all do have a special superpower. I believe we all have something like that makes us stand out from the crowd. And every single guest that's come on, I see a spark in them, in something that they say where I'm like, oh my God, you're magic. What would you say is your special something that you have now maybe identified after many years of being in business, that's got you this far? Because you have got very far. And, we want to celebrate how far women have come, especially in tricky industries like real estate.
One of my best friends had on his Instagram many years ago, I'm not especially talented, but I'm like very curious. So I think it's something like that. I'm a very good generalist. I'm not like incredible at anything, but I can get everything and I can do it, and I can. So I don't know, there's something
in that. I love that. It's almost like, it's what you just said. I feel like you're a bit of a chameleon, and you can slot into any situation.
Yeah.
And help and figure it out.
I think it's something like that, because you see, and obviously like part of your job is to hire incredible people in each, so if I look at all the people across my team, they're very strong in their areas. I could never be as strong as this person in that area or this person in that area. But maybe what I can do that they can't is I can do a bit of everything.
Yes.
And I think if you are an entrepreneur, like that's probably something that you need to be able to do. You need to be able to get under the skin of kind of everything in the business.
And have the overall overarching view is what I feel like you have of your business. And that's probably what is going to drive it and has been driving it. Thank you so much, Gabriela. I feel like we could talk and talk and talk, but we are out of time. But that has been so insightful. It's been so wonderful. And I'm going to be watching Huckletree's journey from the sidelines, really applauding and hoping that I think you already are. You are paving the way for female entrepreneurs to hopefully look at your story, look at your journey and go, it's a challenging market, challenging time, but I'm going to try and do it anyway, which is what this is all about. So thank you so much for your time. And guys, if you want to follow Huckletree, if you want to follow Gabriela, we're going to be inserting some of the social media handles and where you can find out more information. But thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.